Welcome, everybody. This is another event at Relationary. We have special guests today coming from AIESEC Sunway. Gentlemen, welcome to Relationary. Would you
Thank
please
you.
introduce yourselves to our audience?
Right. First of all, thank you so much for having us. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
It's a
It
pleasure
is a
having
really
you.
cool place. It's a really cool setup.
I'm glad to
And
hear.
I'm Harith,
Harith,
and this is
Brian.
Brian.
Brian, right? So we're both in Isaac and Sunway, and I've been in Isaac for about 3 months, and Brian, you've been in Isaac for about
3 months.
3 months as well.
Cool.
So we're really passionate about empowering youth, and we feel like mental health is extremely important when it comes to youth.
Yeah. See, you guys, you hear that, right?
Yeah.
It's really important. I'm really, really happy to hear AIESEC is really
Mhm.
taking mental health to the next level. I appreciate that, guys. Welcome aboard, Harith
Thank you so
and
much.
Brian.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. And also we have, I cannot not mention, also we have a team from Relationary. We have, would you please introduce yourselves?
I'm one of the psychologist assistants, Clarice. I was expecting I guess you were introducing me. I've been here for like almost a month.
Yeah.
And I'm Yen Lee. The clinical psychologist here at Relationary.
Wonderful, wonderful. Pleasure to have you guys also with us. And today we have a very important topic, folks. It's really, I mean, not to mention that this is also a preparation for a big event that is coming up in February. So the topic in February is about unwind, and we connecting these to the whole event with trauma and toxic relationship. So what happened, since we've been discussing this with AIESEC, they went out and collected some information, collected some questions from the public, from within their group, and they came up with questions. So they're coming here with questions, and if you have questions, if you feel like we didn't address a specific topic or you want us to elaborate more, feel free to put your questions down below. I mean, we're more than happy to address it. Either by typing, or we can do a special video on that as well. So let's go ahead, guys. Are you guys ready for getting the questions? Or
Yeah, sure.
all right.
Let's get into it,
So yeah, go ahead.
Right. So, I guess the main two things that we'll be covering today would be traumas and toxic relationships.
Hmm.
So, I guess before diving into trauma, new experiences are definitely a part of our day to day.
That's
It's
true.
something undeniable. And oftentimes, trying to experience new things, we get hindered a lot because of our traumatic experiences. And I feel like this is something that's a little bit too much to experience, especially for youth. So I was wondering, before actually talking about tackling traumas, how do we define trauma?
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, trauma is one of the things that is so common, yet little that people know about, to be honest. Sometimes I also talk about trauma, and they're like, "Oh, don't dramatize my life. I don't know about trauma. Don't make it so dramatic. It's no big deal." But actually, we're saying that the term trauma can be triggering to some people. It might be serious, like something serious. Well, it is serious, and at the same time, it's not, because trauma is a term that we use when we experience something that is out of the ordinary, that we feel unsafe, that is really threatening our existence, our safety, our security. So you can be traumatized by um, an earthquake.
Mhm.
You can be traumatized in a car accident, just as much, or maybe more or less, if you were traumatized by separation from your loved one. So, I'm kind of like, because this is about Sunway and all that. So, international students or students who are, living different part of Malaysia or travel, that disconnection can be traumatizing if it was not well prepared, it was not addressed properly. So the general description of trauma, anything that really impacts my safety or my perception of what is safe to me.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Do you feel like people with traumas are easy to identify? Are there any specific signs that we can look into?
Well, I mean, honestly, I don't think anyone has not experienced trauma. I mean, trauma has been existing, and I'm sure I mean, I'm almost 100% sure that we all experienced it. It impacts us different way, in different ways, and it impacts us at different levels, different intensities.
Mhm.
And we also cope with it in different ways, and we also cope with it at different intensities and different engagement and methodologies.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yanli, you want to add on to that?
I would add on, I agree on the part where it comes to different intensities, and it also associates with the upbringing that you have. If you grew up in a culture or in a family where whenever there's something close to traumatic, the parents would be there to teach a child how to deal with the emotions, to deal with the experience,
Mhm.
the child will grow up resilient. Or say, let's say, the upbringing has been pretty healthy. When a child experiences any trauma in the future, there is a good amount of resiliency and good chances this person will bounce back up, and the traumatic experiences will eventually subside.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See. Do you feel like families or parents in particular, do you feel like they're more open towards talking about traumatic experiences, or they prefer not to talk about it too much and keep it, at bay?
I would say it depends on the parent's upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
Here at Relational, we talk about systemic approach.
Mm-hmm.
So if the parents grew up whereby their parents do not talk about this kind of experiences, they would think it's either it's a no, it's taboo, or it's just really awkward, we don't talk about it. And the parents might bring that culture to their future children.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say if it's family or parent specific, but it's more of the culture within that whole system.
Mm-hmm. I see. Right.
Right. So you guys have told us the impact of trauma. So let's dive a little bit deeper. So can you explain to us what causes trauma and how do we as human beings manage trauma?
What causes trauma?
Yeah.
People cause trauma to other people. But you mean like what causes trauma within ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the event, when an event happens, it happens either by people or by external, sources or triggers that is really out of our control.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we perceive it, it can, so let me back up a little bit. So every event that we experience is actually stored in our brain, right? So we store it in our memory, the emotions, the colors, the even the smell, the feel, all of these things are stored in our memory.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we experience an event that is not something that we're familiar with, so the brain doesn't know what to do with it. The brain wouldn't know how to store this. Do I store it as of learning? Or do I store it as of something dangerous? Or do I store it so the brain kind of disperses because it's in distress, because it feels unsafe. So it disperses all this memory across the whole brain.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it saves it in the memory with the amygdala, where the emotions are there. But when the emotion is triggered of fear, so then the fear is actually connected in the brain with this event that is actually dispersed across the whole brain. So it's not really saved in a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when we are traumatized, we get triggered sometimes. We don't know what's really triggering us because we cannot recall that memory, because that memory is all over the brain. So we just recall the fear and we call the event. But we can recall even our perception of the event, not necessarily the event.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened, so for example, a car accident, or a car accident got in, you were involved in a car accident, and in a car accident you hear horns, you hear screech of the wires, the tires are screeching, the burning, the smell, even the burn of the rubber.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes like 2 or 3 years later, you walk by a factory who make tires, and you smell that smell, and all of a sudden you're irritated. You cannot stand it anymore. You don't know what's triggering it, but it's really something that you just cannot, and it'll impact your function in that area. So the brain is not able to figure out what's happening, but the brain remembers this smell is danger.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, the brain goes in a distress mode, and that's really what causes the post-traumatic stress disorder, is because of a trauma. So post-traumatic is something that happens, something that we experience after the trauma. And this is just an example that I get exposed to something that smells like rubber, but it actually has nothing to do with the factory. It has nothing to do with that environment. But in my mind, it's connected to fear. It's connected to unsafe feeling or insecure feeling, and the body goes into distress. The cortisol level, which is really what causes us to even more to be distressful, it increases higher, and then the body and the blood pumps faster. We breathe faster, and we don't know really what's happening to us. So that's like in a synopsis, basically.
I see. And in the beginning you said that almost everyone has experienced traumatic experiences. Do you feel like there's a silver lining towards it? Do you feel like having experienced traumatic experiences, does it strengthen you in a way?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's something that in my practice, when I see my clients, is something that I always emphasize to my clients. Because a lot of the times when something traumatic happens, we tend to either internalize it, we blame ourselves, or we blame our surroundings. And the triggering part is when I talk about a situation, there's just so much emotions flooding in again. And it takes some time to adopt the mindset, well, thanks to this experience. We know, I'm not saying that this experience is acceptable. However, thanks to this experience, what did you learn from it? Had you not gone through this experience, you would not know the importance of friendship, for example. You wouldn't know the importance of love, for example. And it would take my clients some time to think, oh, I guess had I not gone through this, I would not know what I long for now, what's important for me right now. So there's always a silver lining.
And was it easy for them to come to that realization that, look, you know what, I went through this experience and now I'm a better person, I'm a bit more stronger?
It will take some time because how our brain works, this is our thinking, this is our emotions. When we talk about something traumatic, emotions are really high. When emotions are high, thinking cannot happen. It always goes on a seesaw kind of analogy. So what we would do is to allow ourselves to experience this. It is very traumatic. I'm going to learn some coping skills on how to reduce the emotions. Then you can start to think of the silver lining. If I were to give you an example, I think last year I got into a car accident.
Oh no.
At that point, it was very traumatic. You remember? Yeah, it was very traumatic. I was like, oh my goodness, I like to believe I'm a good driver. How did that happen? And it was very traumatic. I was fearful of the repercussions from the angry drivers, from my family, so on and so forth. And I was feeling really numb in that first few hours, I remember. But later on, when the feeling dies down, I remember when I talked to my parents, they were all, my parents and my family, they were all calm. And my mom was trying to ask the people that you hit the car, did they get angry? And on the spot, my dad was like, don't ask about this thing. I was like, oh, my dad has some sensitivity. So thanks to that experience, I thought, oh, had I not gone through this, I didn't know my dad was really cautious about my feeling as the event was still fresh. So I would say in that situation, that is a silver lining for me. I learned that my dad has this kind of sensitivity.
And building on what you just said about that emotional and that ability to think, right? How it's like a seesaw. So when you go through a traumatic experience and your emotional state is all the way up here, how do you manage that at that instant?
We understand what's the purpose of the emotion. What is the emotion trying to tell us? I strongly believe every emotions, if we dive deep down, there's good intention. So this is part of one of the trainings that I did called Mastering Myself, and I teach the participants the purpose of the emotions. Let's say when something is triggering, we start to feel really angry. As I dive down with my clients, the purpose of anger is because I feel like my boundaries are being disrespected. So, but I don't know how to tell people that I don't like it, that my boundaries are being disrespected. So what's the easiest way we know? We just get angry. So every time someone's trying to talk back at me, my natural instinct is to just shout and scold at the person. But now that you have that knowledge and you look at it, any person that's angry, deep down they just want to tell you, can you please listen? Can you please hear me out? I just want to be heard. So as we understand what's the purpose of emotions, we'll realize, okay, so my emotions are validated. And now that I know what's the true intention the emotion is trying to tell me, I can respond differently. I don't need to react anymore.
I see.
I want to mention something really important about the how. It's not, I mean, I wish it's a cookie cutter, right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily work the same way for everybody, right? And that's why there is therapy. That's why there is counseling. That's why there's a psychological profession that would help people based on their needs, based on their capabilities, that would fit. They would find them a solution that would fit for themselves. So and that's why you can't read a book about how to manage trauma, and you'll be all saying, "Oh, it worked for me. It's wonderful." It doesn't work like that. So if you really have these experiences in the past, or maybe you're not even aware of it, as long as you feel like sometimes you feel it's impacting your daily function, then there's something happened that you probably don't know about. And that's where you need to reach out for professionals, and they will tell you how to do it. You can try, there's no harm in trying, but it's really important to keep that option to reach out to a professional.
Sure, yeah.
I would like to add on that. Could you tell us a little bit more? Like, let's say if someone were to reach out to you, but they aren't sure what is going on in their life, what distress are they going through, but they do realize that it does affect their daily activities and their daily function. So how would you guys normally go through this process?
Well, I mean, it starts really by them reaching out. Once they reach out, and they can give us the symptoms of what they are experiencing, then it's just a matter of really for them to go through either assessments or interviewing or both, and then that would help us understand a little bit more. From our perspective, based on our knowledge in psychology and how psychology works, we make the dots, we make the connection between the dots, and we come up with a hypothesis. We tell them, this is what appears to be happening. How does that sound? I mean, that's one way to do it, right? So we go about it, and then if they feel like this is something that they're willing to explore and improve, then that's where the treatment starts. So it starts with diagnosis and then becomes discovery. Yeah.
If I may add on, ideally that's what we hope to happen. Sometimes when the event is still very strong in their mind, or they have suppressed it very well, they may not be ready to do something about it. And on our end, we would just have to respect that and to just give an open arms that whenever they feel that they want to talk about that situation that they have been holding on for a number of years, for example, then they can reach out to us. So as much as we have the tools, we really need to wait and see. We will do our best to encourage the person to start to work on their trauma. But if they are not ready, we need to respect them. Because trauma is a very tender kind of wound. And imagine, I think that was the analogy Amar you used before. It's like there's a scar, and we're peeling off that whole scar. It's going to be really raw, and we really need to take our time to really heal it. And if they're not ready to peel that off, because peeling it's freaking painful, part of our language. So whether the client is ready or not, we need to respect that.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I agree.
May I add on? So, what do you usually tell your clients who aren't really ready to open up, but you do want them to open up because you do see that it does affect their life? So, what are like the things that you might tell them to try to convince them to open up?
Mm, Questions I may ask is how helpful has it been for you so far? And if, let's say, they know very well that the habit they're doing right now is not helpful for them, and I would go along the line of asking questions like, is this the life you want to live 10 years from now? Do you see yourself doing this for another 10 years? To really get into their head to think, since now there's a professional in front of me, do I want to take the opportunity to start working on it?
Yeah. And the purpose is really not to convince them. The purpose is really for them to understand that one way is that for them to understand is that this is not going to disappear by itself. It's going to continue. If you don't do anything about it, it's going to continue to hurt. Yeah. So like if the person would tell the doctor, "Oh, it hurts when I do this," and the doctor's like, "Don't do that." And yeah, I mean that's also true. But do I want to stop doing that for the rest of my life? But if I really want help, then I need to go and make an appointment with the doctor. That's why the doctor is like, don't do that, because he's not in his clinic. He's not in, to do his own assessments or her own assessments. So just tell you that don't do that. But if you really want to treat yourself, you want to make yourself feel better, you have to come to my clinic, and I'll more than happy to address your pain and treat it. And that's why we actually ask these questions, or have the client to take a moment to reflect. How would they like to live like this for another 10 years? And that's really up to them. If they're okay with it, that's absolutely fine. If they are able to cope with whatever it is that is blocking them to function the way they want to, that's totally also fine. It's totally up to them.
Right. So if let's say I'm person A and Brian's person B, and we both come to you with different, two different experiences, and both of us are traumatized. Would you use a same template towards helping us, or is there like a scale that you follow to tackle it?
Skill.
I think he meant by like maybe procedure, like how would you handle
Yeah.
this situation?
I would say the idea, the concept is the same, but how we deliver it, it varies depending on the client. So, but the concept behind it is pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
The guidelines are pretty much the same. Yeah. The concept on how to treat it, the concept on how to approach it is pretty much almost the same. But the details on what works and what's not is really specific to the client.
Right. But since we're also talking about toxic relationships, what are the forms of trauma when it comes to toxic relationships? What does one go through?
You need to ask the relationship specialist,
Ah.
right?
Well, when it comes down to toxic relationship, it's really tricky. Because toxic relationship is very subjective, and at the same time is very based on someone's perspective. So if you were to bring someone from New York for the first time visiting Malaysia, maybe all the people that meet this person probably they would feel traumatized. I mean, a specific area from New York. They're very outspoken, they're very nice people, but the way they speak, it might rub people the wrong way here. So they might feel like, oh, this guy is really not nice, and they might think that this is a toxic person. But he's not. He's maybe one of the best people in, one of the biggest well-known people in his own community as to be the friendliest and the nicest. So just need to be mindful that if you feel like you're in a relationship that is toxic, there's a possibility that is a perception. So it's not always a cookie cutter that it is definitely a toxic relationship. So that could be a perception. It could be a mismatched values or mismatched priorities. And of course, it could be really toxic. I mean, that's just another way to look at it. So So the question is like what makes a relationship toxic? Is that what I heard? Did I remember the question correctly?
It's the form of trauma when it comes to toxic relationships.
Yeah, the toxic relationship can be traumatizing when the person who's being traumatized get the sense that they're no longer secure in that relationship. For example, couples, when one partner finds out about the other partner is cheating, that's traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
That is traumatizing because they feel insecure in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's impacting their existence in that relationship. So that image that they have for themselves is clashing and they don't know what to do with it. So the brain stores it and it gets basically traumatizing for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that impacts their behavior, impacts their engagement in the daily life, and it also impacts their well-being and all that stuff that happens with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one form of traumatizing, or a toxic relationship can be traumatizing. If there is a repeated feeling of being scared, or feeling that you're like walking on eggshells
Mm-hmm.
throughout your relationship with this person, that can also develop to become traumatizing. So also sudden of changes of behavior, when there is a normal behavior and all of a sudden becomes toxic, meaning it could be criticizing, could be invalidating, could be cutting off, could be disappearing, could be a lot of things. And it could be also like gaslighting. It could be a lot of things that could be causing the toxicity in the relationship. So that can make that direct change traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
So trauma can be three types. So one type is an acute trauma.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing cute about it really, but it's called an acute trauma because it happens once.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the first time I'm hearing it. It's still nice. One. The second one?
So it's an acute trauma because it happens once, and the PTSD can last for maybe forever or maybe not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's called an acute trauma. And there is the trauma that is persistent and it's repeated. So that's a chronic trauma. So it continuously happens. Every day you feel insecure. Every day you're being bullied. Every day you're being criticized, right? Every day you feel like you're not enough. You're not doing enough. Whatever you do, you're lazy. Whatever you try to do, so you never feel acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
So that is this is really a continuous, perpetuating trauma. So the PTSD is like a daily thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the third type of trauma is the complex trauma, which is a combination of two. It could have happened once and it disappeared, and then there's one more thing that is important to mention. So the acute trauma could happen once from different people or from different environments, but it could happen multiple times in the day in someone's life, right? They could be traumatized from different sources. The chronic trauma is occurring from the same person or from the same environment. For example, like when the frontliners during the corona, it's traumatizing day in and day out from the same source of environment. So this is considered to be chronic trauma for them, and it prolonged for quite a long time. So for them, it's repeating, seeing people dying, seeing people, they try to help out, but they're not able to, and all this stuff is considered to be traumatic for them. So that's considered chronic. So if you combine these two, if they're chronic, if they're in that environment and they get a car accident, and then they lost another person in their lives, and they got a divorce, all these are multiple acute. So they have multiple acute, and you have a chronic, so that's called complex trauma. So there's a complex trauma. That's the most difficult one to really treat because it takes a lot more to discover and to untangle and to help the person to get over that and to grow. So the toxicity, it can be acute, it can be chronic, and it can be also a combination of both.
Right, and so like with relationships, relationships they take a lot to nurture. It takes
Mhm.
years, right? So when you go into a relationship, let's say you've been in a relationship for about 10 years, and your partner cheats on you, right? So you're traumatized by that event, but you don't want to leave that relationship because you are, again, like, too familiar with that relationship. Familiarity kills you there, right? And you feel like you've put in too much energy towards building that relationship. How do you tell that person, like, look, hey, this is killing you on the inside, you should take a step back and rethink about it?
We don't tell people what to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's if they really want, if they feel like this is important for them and it's better for them, we help them to work that relationship. We help them to grow that relationship, but we need both of them. We need the husband and the first wife
Mm-hmm.
to be in sessions to work on the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We don't tell the husband what to do. I mean, because we have culture here. The Malays, the Muslims, they allow the Muslims and the Mormons, they allow multiple marriages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if that's their culture, I'm not here to tell them what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if there is an infidelity that the culture that they're in does not accept it,
Mm-hmm.
so that's something that they need to decide if they want to develop their own culture and have that relationship or not. That's up to them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here to tell them what's right and what's wrong. I'm here to make sure that the relationship is healthy enough for them to realize if this is good enough for me or not.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they are traumatized, they're reacting. So they are reacting because they feel they are in competition.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, you can't take my man from me. So I'm gonna go and make sure that I'm staying until I kick you out. But that's a reaction to that uh, sense of I'm not. It could be like seeing that person as a threat, but it's not really focusing on the relationship itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? So therefore, the intention is not for themselves to have a healthy relationship. The intention is for them to revenge from the other person.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I'm not here to tell them what to do, but I can tell them by not focusing on the relationship is really impacting your well-being. It's going to impact your relationship with your husband, with your boyfriend, or whatever, or the future relationship that you might have.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, taking advantage and learning from the current situation, deciding whether you want to work on a relationship or you want to separate or you want to keep things as is.
Right.
And that's their decision.
Right. So you mentioned earlier that there are like toxic relationship, like maybe a trait specifically. It doesn't mean that that person's being toxic. It could be, as Mr. Amar mentioned earlier, like maybe misaligned values. So how would a person identify a toxic trait? Like how would they specifically need to feel to like, hey, this is not supposed to be happening in my relationship?
Well, and that's the sad story. Sometimes they don't know.
I was about to say.
Yeah, sometimes they wouldn't know. Sometimes they would know a bit too late. Or sometimes they just stay in it and not knowing what. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
I think when someone's in a toxic relationship, sometimes I hear that maybe their body reacts negatively to around this person. Maybe they feel maybe because like when someone experiences someone like negative continuously, I think they will have like a physiological feeling around them that react negatively towards the person, and I think they will kind of notice that they don't feel good around this person, they don't feel safe around this person. Maybe
Sure.
that's why they can think like maybe my relationship is toxic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the feel of dreading being around this person is a sign that this person is toxic. Dreading meeting them, dreading seeing them, dreading picking up the phone. It's like, oh, hello. I mean, that's just you need to know about yourself. You're not really seeing this person as a friendly person. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Thanks, Grace. Yeah. So did that address? I mean, the question? Do you think, or do we need to elaborate more?
Yeah, I think it answers the question.
Oh yeah, good, good.
Right. So this other question that we have: why do people tend to run away from unresolved past or unresolved traumatic experiences, especially when it comes to toxic relationships? And how can we guide them towards, resolving it, not bottling it in?
Well, like you heard earlier, it's a wound, right? It's very painful. They don't want to deal with the pain, and they feel like if they went back and to understand the past and they're like, what's the point? Why so negative? But they're missing out the opportunity of growing from the pain, because when we understand the pain, folks, it's really important for us to understand what's causing us the pain, because that's really where we need to improve, and that's what we need to focus on, so we develop the new skills. That's why we continue to have the pain. And the more we stay away from the pain, the more we stay away from the skill that we need the most in our lives. So it's blocking us from not knowing how to remove the pain and how to grow from that past pain. You wouldn't know what you're missing. You wouldn't even know what you are capable of doing, because you're not even able to deal with the past pain. And that's why it's important to acknowledge, to reach out, to get the professionals to really heal that pain. Just like if you hurt your ankle or you hurt your knee, do you want to limp for the rest of your life and not ever play soccer again, or play basketball or whatever? Because I cannot play basketball, I hurt myself. Well, if you go to a doctor, if you go to a pain specialist, they can help you with that, and you can still play basketball. So you don't have to prevent yourself or block yourself from what's happening, or what happened in, the fun things that you would like to do in your life, just because of the pain of past pain.
If I may add on, when someone goes through something unexpected and they need to find a way to cope with it, most of the time, the way they cope with it, it's going to be effective. It might not be healthy, but it will be effective. So let's say I've gone through something traumatic, say with authorities, for example. And I find it the effective way is to avoid authorities. I'm just not going to deal with them for the rest of my life. Now, at one point, you will find yourself, you would start to think that this method of coping is no longer going to be effective. So as much as most of the time people don't want to address the trauma because I'm doing fine right now. Why do I need to go and dig the past? Everything I'm doing right now is okay. But I strongly believe that what you're doing right now is effective, but it's only temporary. At one point, going back to the example of the ankle pain, at one point, it's going to hurt out of blue and you wouldn't understand. I thought I was okay. How come the ankle pain is coming back? So what we do here is to help them to discuss with them, how can we have an even more effective coping style that you can carry through, and you have the ability to adjust throughout your phases of life, and you will flourish even more, compared to I'm just going to avoid because it has been effective so far.
That's great, yeah. Fun fact though, speaking of toxic relationships, we've done multiple surveys, and it's a topic that most of the youth are actually worried about. It's on the top of the list next to traumatic experience. So do you have any particular message towards the youths going into relationship, or youths that are already in relationships? Do you have any special message for them?
Reach out. If it doesn't feel right, reach out. Ask the professionals. They'll tell you if it's okay, or if it's normal, if it's something that you need to improve on. It's really important to reach out. Phone calls, we offer a 15-minute phone call. It's for free. You can come and call us. I feel like this. Is this really worth it? Yeah, it sounds like it. Based on what I'm hearing, yeah, probably. You need to check it out. But based on what I'm hearing, maybe it's coincidental because of the stress around the exams and stuff. That's normal. If you're able to cope with it, you don't need to do anything about it. But if this persists further, we can give you some guidelines. But reaching out is very important.
I would say the more the individual is comfortable with themselves, they know how to define themselves, the more they will look at a relationship that would complement them, that would add value to their life. A lot of individual clients that I see, when they're not happy about their relationship because they don't really know who they are, just opportunity comes by, this guy, this girl likes me, so I'll just go ahead with it. And to my knowledge, I realized later on this relationship is not the one for me, but how do I break up with when the dilemma happens? So, how comfortable do you feel about being yourself? I've heard cases where the guy tries to impress. So the guy is not being true to himself. He just went on trying to impress the girl. And turns out the girl was also trying to impress. So two-person not being authentic to themselves, the relationship did not last at all. Because they are not comfortable being themselves. They don't even know who they are. If you don't know who you are, you will not be clear and confident about what kind of relationship am I really valuing.
If I may add on, I think if you're talking about youth, I feel like most of us haven't had a lot of experience in relationships, so I think that we should be open to making mistakes. Like maybe some of us might accidentally hurt our partners or has like some toxic traits, but I think as long as we are open to listening to our partners and trying to fix our mistakes, then I think it's a good mindset to have.
Right.
Right, so can I add on? So we have been talking about the victim, that in a toxic relationship, how does that person, being traumatized, when to seek help, or when to know your partner is toxic? Can we talk about from another perspective, which is the person who's actually toxic in the relationship? So how do these type of people, maybe like they did something wrong, like cheated, that can be considered a toxic relationship because you make your partner insecure, right? So how does like the people who cheated and they know that they did wrong, like how would they want to do that? Maybe it's like they feel like they done it once and they felt great, but they didn't realize like how bad it hurt his partner. Could be anything, doesn't need to be cheating. So how would that person like try to fix themselves from this toxic trait?
Well, when it comes down to infidelities or any cheating in a relationship, I mean, we don't want to limit this only to people in a romantic relationship. Also, this can happen between a person at work and their boss. I mean, the person, like the subordinate, would be like giving a face to his boss or her boss, and then they actually take directions from another person or from the boss's boss. So there is a trust issue here. So the trust can be broken when there's infidelity. So this is a form of infidelity. Like when I'm supposed to be loyal to someone, and my direct report to my dad, for example, or to my boss, or to my mom, and all of a sudden I go talk to my auntie, and I talk to my mom. Well, my auntie said this and that. Why don't you be like my auntie? That can that can trigger the mom, right? Can trigger the dad. So that's a form of disloyalty, if you want to call it. But that's a more general form of infidelity. So it's the same concept. There's a loyalty there that is broken. So the question is what?
How would you want to deal with it? Like change yourself?
Yeah. So therefore, it's not about me changing myself. If this is happening between two people, I need two people to come in here, because it's not that I need to fix one or the other. I want to fix the relationship. That's why we call this as a relationary. This is a place to fix relationships. Woohoo!
Really smooth.
Yeah.
Okay, so like it's just based on personal experience. I think I have been toxic in several relationships. I've been told I'm manipulative, toxic, insensitive, and things like that. So I think it depends on the person whether they want to be remorseful or not. So I think because people will call you out, if they're not happy with how you are in your relationship. So when they do that, you understand and you don't do the same mistake in your next relationship. So I think that's how they learn. But if they really like the person, I think they would try to change themselves for the person like in the same relationship. Yeah, just by the feedback from their partner.
Right. Feedback from the partner for what? About the toxicity of the relationship.
Yeah, because they ask like how does a toxic person
How does a toxic person
change themselves?
And that's the toxic person is asking that question.
Yeah, like on the toxic person's point of view.
Interesting. I personally believe that if you're in a toxic relationship, you will learn how to cope with it. You will not learn how to get out of it. You're stuck in it. Simple as that.
Mhm.
You will probably, you'll be, if you're like, for example, if you were to break up with your toxic partner today, then you have a new partner who's like, I'm not going to pick another person who's toxic. I'm going to pick a nice guy. Guess what happens? If I were to say like, I have a toxic, girlfriend in my life, right? And the next one, I'm going to make sure that she's not toxic. Guess what? My behavior might cause her to be toxic. I'm not changing. I'm not learning anything. But I feel like it's because the other person is causing it to me to be toxic. It's not necessarily. My behavior is allowing that toxicity. It's like as if I'm expecting it from the other person. Almost telling themselves like, torture me, just like abuse me. And that really happens. That really, really happens in many, many different relationships. But I can do this for so long until I'm just drained, until I'm just don't know what is right, what is wrong, and then I'm just dead inside. I'm no longer existing. So that's too late for me to learn anything. And honestly, I haven't learned anything from all the previous toxic relationships because it's me repeating the same pattern, and the other person is maybe reacting to that.
This is where we talk about how it's a 50-50%, right?
100%. Yeah.
So, to add on what Omar said, if we don't learn about our 50%, what we're bringing to the relationship, we're just going to keep bringing the same 50% to the next and the next and the next relationship. So even though that person is a really good person, but we're just bringing that same 50%, you're not going to expect things is going to be a very nice, happy ending.
Last week, we did a very nice discussion with the team and people attending about how to grow your love. How to grow your love. I mean, it could be your love to your siblings, a love to the parents, love to your children. It could be a love about anything. And it was quite a foreign language that I was speaking because people were like, well, what if they were toxic? What if they're bullying me? How am I going to grow my love? Like, but that's the 50% you're bringing into the relationship. If you really want to bring love to the relationship, you can bring it. But accepting toxicity, accepting bullying, accepting abuse is not going to work. Talking is very important. And that's really the most important part is when we want to work with anybody in a toxic relationship, we need to teach them how to talk, how to communicate. Generally speaking, if you are feeling unheard in any relationship, it's there's a very high chance that it's toxic.
I really like what you guys mentioned about that 50% thing, about two people bringing something to the relationship, because it's something that I can sort of relate to, but something that my dad always tells me about. It takes two to tango. When I'm with your mother, it takes two to tango. So I bring this part of the relationship, this aspect of it, and then your mother brings this aspect of the relationship.
Yeah.
And together,
Very
we
wise man.
complement each other's personalities, our weaknesses and all that, and we move towards making that relationship beautiful for us and for the kids. So
Yeah.
I like that 50% thing.
Yeah.
It's really good, yeah.
And it's true also not only for married couples, it's true for children and parents. Child to parent relationship, parent to child. It's 50-50. And you can control that 50 to make the other 50 more positive. You can bring that positivity to the other 50 by starting it.
What about to go on the other end, where what made a person become a toxic person, maybe you would call them as an abuser. I like to think that if we were to really sit down and talk to them, deep down they're going through something as well. And the way they cope with it is to be that dominant toxic person. And just sort of sharing that as well, that it's not easy to empathize with someone who's toxic, who is abusive. But once you get to know their stories, you would see that they are just really trying to relate to the other person. They just did not know how to.
Yeah, and I would like to also add to that. Some people can be in toxic relationships, and even though the other person is toxic, like I mentioned earlier, they may be causing that toxicity. If the other person is saying something and they feel like they're not being heard, they can be toxic, or you'll be the one who's feeling unheard, and you'll be the one who's receiving that toxicity. So if you feel like your needs are not met, no matter what you say, no matter what you do, the other person is either reacting or consciously behaving that way. If they're consciously behaving that way, it's a problem within that person. We need to work on that. But if they are reacting to them also not feeling heard, then there's a cycle of negativity happening here that we can fix it. We can definitely fix it. But if it's something that is, I'm coming as I'm entitled, I'm better than you, and this happens with parents, honestly, with towards the children, and I can speak a little bit about from a Muslim perspective because that's who I am. I believe in I'm a Muslim, so I met a lot of Muslim parents, and I've also heard a lot of stories from my Christian friends that the parents tell them what needs to be done from an Islamic perspective, from a religious perspective, as if they are actually they own hell and heaven. It's like they tell him the right and wrong, the what they're supposed to do to the nitty gritty, everything, to the eating, to the setting, and they don't allow them to develop that. Not allowing your child to develop that relationship. We're talking about relationship. If you are representing God, you are presenting a toxic relationship to your child about God. So the child will grow up thinking God doesn't love me, God doesn't understand me. So my relationship with God is just like my mom or like my dad. They're very demanding. They don't understand the pain I'm going through. So forget this religion. And you see your children are walking away from your religion, and no matter how much you scream and how much you yell, they're not gonna hear you because their perception of the religion is coming from you. Your perception of what religion is supposed to be. But as parents, you're supposed to allow your children to develop that skill to build that relationship with their God. If that's so important to you, you allow them to make mistakes at a younger age. And, I haven't seen any Christian or Muslim that didn't believe that God is forgiving. So I don't understand what happened to forgiveness. It really baffles me sometimes. Yeah. So sometimes we present another person as being toxic, but they're not really toxic. So we react out of fear, and we always see that person as toxic. This happens a lot with parents. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with the Rohingya. They are scared of the police, and the children are traumatized about the police. But the police sometimes people are people, right? Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. But you see the police and they just run away they're just traumatized. They feel the police is gonna traumatize them, is gonna be toxic to them. So they're presented that view by the parents. The parents are doing it for good intentions. It's the same thing from a religious perspective. They're doing it with good intentions, but that's not how it's done. We develop children seeing other people as toxic if we're not doing it right. Yeah, so it's a different angle when it comes down to child development. So that's a totally maybe different topic we're talking about. But if the child grew up in an environment is very critical, that can be seen as a toxic relationship that I'm not good enough. No matter what I do, I'm not good enough. So it could be it could be the mother, it could be the dad, it could be from a religious perspective. I'm still not good enough. So I don't understand what to do. Yeah. So they see the whole world as a toxic environment.
Building on what you said about parents, guiding kids with religion and all that, I feel like when it comes to religion, there's always consequential learning, consequentials, meaning if you do this right, you're gonna have it. If you don't do this right, you're gonna have it. So it's there's always a yes and a no. There's no gray area. It's white and black. So I feel like if a child has been brought up in that environment, it's very detrimental to the child's mental health.
I don't doubt that. And parents forget the chance or the opportunity to teach the child how to love the religion. Or if they feel like this is the right thing for the children, well, teach your child how to love the religion, not to teach them how to be a machine or fearful. They would put fear in their hearts. They would not do it out of love. They would do it out of reaction so they don't get in trouble from mommy or from daddy. And that's not good. That'll last for as long as they're children. Once they grow up, they tell you bye-bye. Yeah. So they see the whole family as toxic because I cannot exist. I'm not heard. Even though I worked hard studying on my exam last night, that's why I missed a prayer in the morning. But they don't acknowledge my hard work. They just beat me up for not praying on time. That's not good. Yeah. But these are the stories we hear, and these are some of the people we work with. But it's really important to understand that you are maybe seen as a toxic person in a relationship, despite the good intentions that you have. It doesn't play a role in it. So that's why communication is very important. That's why understanding your role in the relationship is very, very important. What's your role in that relationship at that stage? It's important. Just like two people going on dates, the role of the guy at the beginning of the relationship is to bring flowers and chocolates. All that disappears after that because the phase. No, I'm just joking. No, I mean that's how we nurture a relationship, you guys. I mean, all the people who are in relationships, the dates don't stop after she says yes, right? You guys need to really be more proactive, and I talk more to the men. You really need to reach to your spouse and take her out on a date, surprise her. She would love that. And these are the things that would nurture relationships. So we're talking about a lot of toxic things, but we also need to talk about the positive things that we can bring and nurture to a relationship. And same thing with parents. Don't take your children on a date, but you can take them out on an outing. And you can take one child at a time. That really makes that child feel very special. So even though you maybe have good intentions and your child sees you as toxic, by doing this little thing, it's like the child's like, I bet my dad is not so bad after all. And they start to question that my dad is toxic and all that stuff.
I think when it comes to couples, if the relationship hasn't been that great and suddenly someone is doing nice, say the husband is doing something nice, I can only imagine the wife would say, what did you do wrong?
Yeah, well, he can tell her that we watched this video with Relationary and AIESEC. And they mentioned that.
Right. Also, talking about relationships with parents, right? So sometimes parents are very hard on their kids. They tell them, you don't need to get a degree, get a good job, make sure you're financially stable and all that. And they do it in a way that is very, in a way, harsh or a little bit too much. And kids take it the wrong way. But I feel like children should also take the time to understand that all of this comes from the right place with the right intentions. Maybe the approach is not as pretty, but the intention is pure.
Right. There's no doubt. I haven't seen any parent had bad intentions to their children. I have never met, I never heard, never seen, I never, read any articles or anything about that. All parents have great intentions, and they compete with intentions towards their children. They're misunderstood. There's no doubt. So I would say it's a 50-50. The parents also need to be mindful that the child's limitation on the resources and understanding is not as developed as the parent. They need to be mindful that, I'm stressed, like as a parent, I'm stressed at work. I really hate my boss. I hate my work. I hate traffic. I come home, I'm so stressed. You want me to talk to my child and talk sense into them? I cannot. I have to demand. I want it now, and I want it to be done because I want it to be for them to be better than me, and I want it to happen quick. As a parent, this is what happens. I mean, this is why parents are pissed off at all the time, most of the times. So for the parent to be able to manage all that and put a smile on their face with their children, that doesn't happen. I mean, it happens in Netflix, but and in movies and Hollywoods and Bollywoods, but in real life, it's not easy. Just imagine that you are going going to a gym to build your muscles from 8 in the morning or 7 in the morning until 7 at night. You're working out. Putting all these weights on your arms and your legs, you're just working your whole body. You come home and the family tell you, okay, now here is another 200 kilos that you need to work out on. And you're like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. They're like, you're not going to be able to. And that's what we call emotional regulation. And emotions are stressed throughout the whole day because you have been working on emotions and you've been putting a smiley face on people that you hate and you cannot stand because it's part of what is needed to be done. And towards the end of the day, all these emotions are drained. Just like your muscles are drained from working out from 7 to 7. So your emotions are not going to be there. Your positive emotions are gone. They're used up. You need to sleep, you need to refresh, so you can reach out to professionals to help you how to regulate your emotions throughout the day. So when you get home, you still have positive emotions for the rest of your family. And that's really the key. That's really the key. I understand what you're saying, and I totally agree with you. But I say it's the 50% on the children and 50% on the parents. Yeah, children, you guys, we all have smartphones. When did we, use it? Like, how do I cope with my difficult dad? How many child out there use their phone and Google that? I doubt it, but we can do it. Yeah, you have that 50% in your hand. You have that ability to initiate your part. What can you do about your 50% instead of being demanding or feeling that you are entitled to your dad's kindness? So that's really important. So yeah, I would say 50-50.
Can I ask, what happens if it's only 50%? You're giving your effort, you're trying to improve that relationship, whether if it's a romantic relationship or a relationship with your parents. But it's only one way, like you're not receiving back any feedback. Would you say that this would really change their behavior, make them more disobedient to their parents, perhaps?
Well, it's a limping relationship, right? You're running only on one leg. How far can you go? How fast can you go? You're gonna really strain that leg really, really fast, and it depends on how resilient you are, how important that relationship. Like for example, if you're taking care of your elderly, you're running a 50% relationship. You don't expect. Seriously, you just need to have a higher purpose, transcending everything you're doing for a higher purpose, and that's the other 50%. So you expect, like from a religious perspective, we expect pahalas from God, right? We call it pahalas.
Yeah,
pahalas. So that's another Malay word. Need to write it down. So we get rewards, right? So that's the 50%. That's gonna keep helping me charged. But if I don't have that 50% from a person that is normal, that's also my choice. Do I really want the rewards from God because I'm being patient? Or enough is enough. It's also my call. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but I want to add on to that.
Sure.
How would someone be able to see that, they're not receiving any type of like rewards back from the relationship? How would they change their mind and see that it serves a greater purpose to sustain this relationship for me, myself in the future, and to this person?
How do they notice that they're not being replicated? The 50% is not being.
Yeah, it's not being replicated, but how do they know that it's for the better?
Oh, okay. So that's the upbringing, that's the culture, that's the environment. That plays a big role in that perception. So it puts a priority for them. What is more priority for me? Is really for me to, like for example, from a religious perspective, if I want to be accepted by God, I need to take care of my child even if they're ignoring me, right? I need to be there for them. I need to be there for my wife even though she's not being nice to me. I need to be nice to my husband even if he's not nice to me, because I'm doing it because my right that I have a covenant and I have a commitment that I put my name under the name of God, and I have to fulfill my duty towards that contract, which is the marriage, right? It's done in the church or done so therefore I need to fulfill my commitment to that. I need to do my part. Because at the end of the day, I'm going to be facing God. So therefore, they're holding themselves accountable based on that environment, based on that religious expectation for a higher purpose. But if they're doing it to please mom and dad, that's not going to stay long. That's not going to stay long. I mean, there's some religion, there's a specific school in a Christian, I believe, that the divorce is not acceptable. So how do you live like that? So for how long you can stay like that, right? So I believe if if I'm not mistaken, it's the Catholic school. There is no divorce in marriage. Once you're married, you're married. Once you're married forever, and you just work it out. What if that is the circumstances? What do they do? Well, their chances is really to live up to get the reward from God. I mean, that's the best shot that they have. But if they're doing it so they don't look bad in a church, or they're not, so they'd be looked down upon, that's not the right way to do it. That's not the right way to do it. And some of them, they say, like, forget it, I don't want to do it with the church. And there's some of them, they also do the same thing with Islam. And there's like, forget Islam, forget it, I need to look after myself. I cannot live like this. And that's their call. That's their decision. So you have the three factors, is that the environment, personal, or beliefs. So these are the three factors that really impact our decisions and what we do.
Last year, in October, I actually lost my grandmother. So, but she had a wonderful life. But before she passed away, she had a stroke. So a lot of her day-to-day wasn't as pleasant. And it was just my dad, the entire family just taking care of her, and we didn't expect that 50%. We were so focused on giving our 50%, and we weren't expecting anything. Because we knew that at that age, you mean it's best for us to give out whatever that we can, right? So, on what you said just now was quite beautiful, right?
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Sorry, I made a spill earlier, and that kind of distracted me. And yeah, it's really hard and difficult when we lose a close person to us, and especially grandparents. And children usually they're closer sometimes to the grandparents than the parents most of the times. And I'm really I'm touched by your story. I really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing that.
Wow, I feel like today's session has been amazing.
We finished all the questions?
Yeah, we have.
Oh wow, cool. That's great.
Yeah.
Any questions from you guys? So how is your impression listening to, if you guys, I hope you were listening. Okay, I have a question. If you don't have a question, what's your impression about this talk? What do you think about this talk? What are your thoughts? What's your takeaway? Got it. All right.
I think I have one small thing to add.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, I know that sometimes the trauma is not someone's fault, but I think it's their responsibility to try and heal from it, to try and change themselves for it. So if someone is hurt by what you did, you don't get to say that. You don't get to say indifferently,
Yeah.
So if they call you out for it or give you feedback, I think that if you should try to change for the better.
Yeah, something you just triggered a memory in my head. I appreciate that, Clarice. So one thing is that what you really said is spot on, 100%. Like trauma is an opportunity to grow stronger, no doubt about it. And how we go about it, this is really what things can go more challenging. Stronger people or more successful people, they've gone through a lot more failures than the mediocres. 100%. I know that for a fact. Those who failed in lives, those who faced tragic experiences or traumatizing experiences, they're much more resilient at the end of the day. So sometimes what happens is that they're not resilient the right way. And the reason behind that is, you see, we used to live in small communities where the parents were a community, not just two people. The parents were close to the grandparents, were close to the grandparents, and so forth. So that's the community. It was all related. So the wisdom stayed there. But after we left the kampong, right, and we traveled across the globe, the wisdom within the family is no longer there if you're moving to a different part of the world or you're moving to the city. It's not as easily accessible. So that wisdom of helping the person how to maximize from trauma is not there. It's a disconnect. So if you reach out to your dad or your mom, they might not know how to help you because they didn't receive it from their grandma, from their mom and their dad, from your grandma and your grandpa. So there's a disconnect in knowledge. And that has been buried. I'm sure that this is like 3 generations before us. I feel like the majority of the useful knowledge that would help us to grow from trauma had died, and it only exists in books. I strongly believe that. I would like to argue that the purpose of the psychologist is to bring that wisdom into yourself, to untangle that wisdom, because I mean, even though that knowledge was a disconnect, but I strongly believe also that we have that capability to develop it once we are giving the right guidance. And that's what we do in therapy most of the time, if not all, is that we facilitate the growth. And it's your way to growth, it's your skills, it's your abilities. Sometimes not having the right coach, right, is not going to help you be the right player. Having the right coach is going to help you be the right player. Have you ever seen a successful team without a coach?
No.
Have you seen a successful player without a coach? Have you seen a successful student without a good teacher? There has to be someone there to help you through it. If you're not getting that support from someone close to you, reach out. There's really nothing else to do other than reaching out. Yeah, that's what you triggered in my mind, and I appreciate that.
And again, like the healing process is going to be a very long and difficult road, but I feel like at the end of it, we're going to coming.
It's gonna be
best
very
version of
rewarding.
ourselves.
Yeah, I always say that psychotherapy works. I have no doubt in that. 100% convinced. It just takes time. Just like how much I believe bodybuilding, when you work out muscles, it works. You want muscles? You just need to go to the gym. It works. It just takes time. It's painful? Yes, it's painful. Same thing. It's a different type of pain. It's emotional pain. But we are here to help you and work with you at your pace. So if you are with the right professional that you feel comfortable with, we can really untangle a lot of opportunities in your life to be more successful in your future life. Yeah.
Awesome.
Right.
So what are your thoughts, guys, about the talk?
Who thoughts that?
Everybody's.
Everybody's.
Yeah, but they're not talking. Yeah, our name is Alia, right? Oh, sorry. Sasha, you told me that yesterday. I forgot. Sasha, what are your thoughts? She said like that. What do you say? Oh, no. I knew it. What about around the table? What are your takeaways, guys? And for me, it's a really good reminder. I can share that. It's a really good reminder about what's happening out there, and it's a good reminder that we are capable, we're learned, and we're not going to be able. I'm not going to be able to help anyone unless they come and reach out. But that's just for me a reminder of how much work we need to do to destigmatize how people see trauma, how people see mental health. That's my takeaway.
My takeaway is that I'm very thankful for all of the clients that I've seen that they decided to take that step to reach out. And it's very rewarding for the client and myself to see that they come to the stage where they feel that they are much more resilient. They are much more stronger. Even if there are anything that would somewhat trigger some of their traumas, they can come to the session and say, you know what, I learned this, I learned that. And it takes a really long time. So I really appreciate those that have taken a step to reach out, and I urge more people out there to reach out. It doesn't matter how big, how small your concern is, there's nothing wrong to reach out.
I think my takeaway would be it was quite interesting. It was very insightful that you gave us a lot of different perspectives that I don't think the youth could see For example, the 50%, you giving your effort, and to the person giving the effort, it takes two people to tango. It takes two to tango. I don't think most people see that. Usually, when one side is falling down, they would just perceive the pain and they would not want to seek help. They do not want to reach out. They just want to think it's a learning experience, although it's a learning experience, but they do not realize that could affect the other people that they will meet.
True.
Yeah.
That's
So
right. That's right.
I think that was quite insightful. I don't really know what to say, but as from what they did.
You're gonna use your toe as well.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I guess my main takeaway is that no man's an island.
Mm.
Whatever it is you're doing in life, it's best not to do it alone. It's best to have people around you, people that you love, people that support you.
That's really good.
Go through your day-to-days. The Great Wall of China wasn't built in one day, right? And then we are the same way. We don't expect ourselves to be amazing and having no traumatic, having gone through traumatic events, see it from it like instantly. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes work, and having loving, nurturing people around you will definitely ease the process.
Yeah.
So you're
That's
relying
very
on the people you love. I guess, yeah, that's the main
very
takeaway.
That's beautiful. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate everybody's feedback here. And should we wrap it up?
All right. Can I wrap it up?
Sure.
Right. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast with Relationary. So if you guys do enjoy it, we have a news to break to you is that Relationary is collaborating with AIESEC in Sunway, and we'll be having our event at Sunway University. It'll be held at 4th to 5th February from 8:30 to 6:30 p.m. Okay, and it's called Unwind. That's the theme for this year. And what we're going to do is that through this event, we're going to help you embrace your past to grow for a better future.
Nice.
Some key activities include empowering talk, workshops, commit space, panel discussion, and a reflection space for you to reflect the throughout event.
Nice.
For more information, you guys can check out on our socials. All right. Once again, thank you, Relationary, for having us here,
Right,
and
thank you
it's
so
been a
much.
pleasure to have this talk.
It's a pleasure. Thank you guys for coming over. And for everybody, stay happy.
Yeah.
That's my signature ending.